Hello, Phil. Welcome.
Hi, Sai. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making the time, my good friend. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to get time with you. So I definitely appreciate it. We're, we're doing these catalytic conversations in anticipation of the May 13th event, Rethinking Women's Leadership in Business, of course, with Andy Simon and the Women Business Collaborative. And we're reaching out to leaders and having conversations with leaders across numerous industries. And it is truly a privilege to have you with us, Phil. So thank you and welcome.
Oh, the honor's mine. It's always exciting getting to come on here and talk, especially to you and what I think's a great topic too.
Excellent, excellent. I would love for you to kind of dive a little bit deeper, introduce yourself, my good friend, and what you're all about and the world in which you operate, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I'm the founder and president at Call Potential. We're a communications and interactions platform built for the self storage industry, and then we're also expanding into other verticals as well. But before that, I really kind of got my start in business originally in IT consulting with Capgemini, and from there to Oracle. And then I thought, well, what's the most logical thing to do from here? And I went into self storage, and kind of utilize that. And then as I kind of grew in storage, I found there was a big gap in the technology side of the storage industry, built Call Potential, and have kind of taken off running from there.
Excellent, excellent. And definitively, I mean, that's one of the things that I immediately picked up on in our interactions is the entrepreneurial nature, and that is just built into your DNA, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been raised in the entrepreneurial side. Sitting around the dinner table, having various conversations, all the way stemming back. My grandma was actually the first female owner of an auto parts store in the state of Illinois, and so listening to her talk, and then my mom had, she ran her own business for doing accounting and bookkeeping. My dad was also an entrepreneur. He had auto parts and automotive that he learned from his mom, which was my grandma. And then really kind of growing up through the years, always had that constant conversation, constant problem solving. And it was really one of those things where I went to school and got my degree in entrepreneurship, and then realized no one's probably going to hire an entrepreneur. So I went and got a degree in information systems, which got me my first jobs. But then I always kind of had that passion I wanted to get back to, and hence back into business.
Fantastic, fantastic, Phil. So we would love to kind of hear your perspective and wisdom as you look at, if you, especially in your role, the uniqueness of your role. What's leadership all about, and what are you seeing, Phil?
Leadership is, I mean, it comes from so many different places. There's people that go out there and they take this leadership role of I'm in charge and you got to listen to me, and that's not me. I think that's a method of leadership, but that's a method that typically gets fear in action versus partnership and teaming, and I'm more in that partnership and teaming, more of that kind of we're all part of building something. Rather than going out there and directing the team to go do, it's how do I get everybody to kind of step up to kind of do the best that they can do, to be part of something that they're feeling like, hey, I'm not just going in there and I've got my job that I'm going to, but I'm going out there and I feel I'm not only a part of it, but I'm contributing and building and doing, and kind of that leadership style, giving people the ability to succeed or to show you things that they wouldn't necessarily know they can do, is really where I try and drive. And a lot of that comes because that was always the organization I like to be a part of. And I look to build my organization around that same structure, and obviously find people that resonates with.
Excellent. And Phil, you really emphasize the keyword partnership, if you will, as you see it manifest in the workplace. I'm going to ask it almost in a counterintuitive way. How hard is it truly to cultivate a environment of partnership, as you described?
It's easy when there's only one or two other people. It is immensely harder as you grow. When I first started with Call Potential, you had one or two people, and hey, you've got no other choice. There's so many things you've got to do, and you're constantly in communication with each other, because they're sitting right there, and you're interacting with them all the time. But as you're growing, it's difficult. It's going out there and adding those layers where we've got about 60 people in the organization now, and to be able to have that interaction, that partnership, that ownership, that's taking place. There's a lot of things that we put in place. Whether it's one of the things that we put in, a number of years ago, because I used to be kind of the all ideas came from me, and when I'm the only person, they have to come from me. But as we grew, I started becoming less and less frontline, less and less interacting with our customers, and being able to stay in touch day to day with all of our employees. And so, how do we get those ideas to flow in? And we created this thing called the Great Idea Pizza Party, and it started off monthly and moved to quarterly. But the cost of entry is one great idea. We put them all on the board. You can sit there. Everyone talks about their idea, and you can put them in anonymously if you want. But if you put them in anonymously, then I have to guess what you meant. But 90% of them end up having the people come up and talk about them. They can be positive. They can be whatever you want them to be. But really, a big part of that ownership side is one of the last ones. I think we had close to 40 ideas, and we ended up implementing 25 of them. And because it's a big thing, if I keep asking for input and I don't do it, people will stop giving it. And
Yep.
so that leadership style, that kind of ownership style that I take is give me your ideas, and you're going to see me do them. Not all of them, but you're going to see us go through and talk about those that we didn't, why we didn't do them.
Excellent. And Phil, one of the things that strikes me, and I definitively want your perspective on this is, when we talk about entrepreneurship, right, we can say entrepreneurship relative to the marketplace, right? What's missing in the marketplace.
Sure.
And then as we scale, right, there is a sense of entrepreneurship around our culture. How do we innovate? How do we be entrepreneurial relative to our culture? And I definitively hear that tone in what you're sharing.
The culture is a big thing for me. There was a point in time where I've worked in jobs and I just don't want to be there. It's not it's a bad culture fit, and so I purposefully went out trying to make sure Call Potential fit the culture I wanted to be in, because I need to be able to stay there. But to tell you the truth, the funny thing is probably a couple of the people in our organization have really been the driving force in helping me kind of grow that culture, and a lot of that is because they have that same idea of culture. It's always funny because Holly, who I know you've spoken to as well, has always been that person who really helps drive a lot of that, making sure we stay on top of quarterly events and monthly events and weekly things, and how do we do this, and all these ideas that come across. And Holly has a very similar idea of culture to me. At least it seems to me she
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And so being able to surround myself with those people that have that similar idea of culture and that similar approach, and then have them kind of go in and go, hey Phil, we haven't done this. We gotta do this. The big shift was when we went virtual, when COVID hit. We had all of these events and all of these things where we all get together, and it's Thanksgiving. We would have everybody kind of brings in a potluck, and we have our fantasy football league, and we've had NCAA brackets, and we had a watch party for different movies, and one of our Slack channels is called Nerd Alert, because we all talk about everything from Marvel to Star Wars, everything else. And when we moved virtual, it was hard, and it's taking a lot of work to maintain that. And we've tried multiple different things, and some of them will work for a month or two, and then you have to shift over to something else, and you've got to shift over to something else. And that has been one of the more challenging things of COVID, is not the business side, it's the culture side, to maintain that. And that's, to be honest, I think we've done an outstanding job, and I would say only probably 5% of that has to do with me. It has to do with all the people that we pulled in, and not just Holly, but also Scott and Usha and Alyssa, and all of these people who have come in and layered on these things to go, hey, what about this? Let's try that, and give it a shot, see what happens.
It's very powerful. Your courage is expressed powerfully, Phil, because if you weren't open to that degree of internal entrepreneurial approach to culture, a person respectfully in your role could have said, well, no, we've got to do something else, or we focus in this direction versus another. But you are truly open and inviting to that entrepreneurial vantage point from
Yeah,
others.
and I'm connected to a number. I'm in a couple of groups with some other CEOs and of similar type companies, and it's always interesting to me because a lot of them, they're maintaining a culture was, no, we got to force everyone back to the office, and that wasn't the approach we wanted to take. Not just because of safety, but we weren't seeing performance impact. There wasn't a business need to do it. So it's how do we shift our culture so that it is adaptable to this new way of working? And to tell you the truth, it's opened us up to a number of new employees that may have not fit in a office centric approach. Whether they're remote or they've got lifestyle needs that don't fit coming into an office. Because that's been one of the, I'm a big believer, and I don't care when you work or where you work, as long as you get your work done. And that flexibility and culture has allowed us to get great talent. But a lot of that great talent has come from those people who are part of groups that may not have the traditional flexibility that you have, especially with women returning to the workforce, or other groups that can't come in to a particular lifestyle, because there's many families that have been structured around the mom helping take care of the children, and there's a lot of great talent that's out there. And if we can structure it so they can be just as productive as the person who's sitting at a desk next to me, I mean, that's where we want to be, because it gets us the best person, not just the person in front of us.
Yeah. And quite honestly, as I'm listening to kind of your sharing, I'm glancing over your shoulder. It looks like so there's some awards on the table there. So you've got to share a
Yeah,
little bit more about kind of what that journey is. Yeah.
I thought my shoulder was blocking those well enough, but no, I mean, we've done a great job, and it's really the team that these are a number of kind of best of business awards that we've won, ranging from call center services to support to technology innovation. And so it's something where we've gone out, and uh, the initial idea of call potential came from me, but the realization of it came from really everybody else that's involved. And a lot of these are just a testament to, I think, a great team we've got building things.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And especially Phil, as you know, as we kind of zoom in from the broader leadership spectrum, there's a lot of conversations, of course, given the crisis of 2020 with COVID, amongst other societal shifts, I'll say. There's a lot of conversations around gender and dynamics and males and females in the workplace. You know, respectfully, kind of, can you share your philosophy just overall in the workplace?
I it's funny because when we're getting ready for this, I was trying to think. I'm like, well, what do we do? What do and I don't know that there's a thing we do. It's we don't take an active decision to go. We're going to go out and this how many we've got to hire a woman for this role, or we've got to go out and make sure we're balanced at this level. And it's funny because I think a lot of it is because of my own past experience. And I talked to a couple of the women in the organization before coming on here to go, hey, what is it that attracted you here, and what got you here? Because that's really kind of hearing from them of, why did you choose Call Potential, or better yet, why did you stay at Call
Hmm.
Potential? Because I mean, anybody can be tricked into going somewhere. It's a matter of them sticking around, and I just don't really look at it in terms of am I men or women. I'm looking at it as kind of that best role, and many times we've been able to see that at all levels. That best person to fill that position was a woman. Whether it's our leadership team, which is pretty close to half women, to our engineering QA side is pretty heavily female as well. And so it's one of those things where the people I've brought on below me, because they have a lot of those similar, I guess, thoughts and culture, that adaptability and flexibility has made it a good grounds for people to find the right places for them, and to stay with us long term. I know Wendy, my director of operations, she's been with me. I'm sure she'll yell at me for getting this wrong, but I think she's been with me 7 or 8 years. And Holly, who's my director of marketing, she's been with me 5 or 6 years, which in the grand scheme of things may not sound all that long, but our company isn't that much older than that. Wendy is our longest tenured employee at Call Potential, and so it's really been great being able to have them come on. And to tell you the truth, it's funny because you know Wendy is probably the best at calling bullshit on me.
Hmm.
Pardon my language if I shouldn't be saying that on here.
All good.
But it's one where she keeps me honest. She's the person who comes in, and I may come in with an idea, and she's like, we need to think about that. we need to slow down, because I am a person who comes in with an idea and I want to hit the ground running. And she's a realist, and she'll come in and she'll tell me, as she likes to say, her New Year's resolution one year was to laugh at more of my jokes, because I think she decided she wasn't laughing at any of them.
Okay.
But then the next year was to tell the emperor when he wasn't wearing any clothes. And I
Nice.
appreciated the laughing at the jokes probably more, but it was probably more valuable to tell me when I was making a mistake, and that's been very powerful for me to have her kind of be that counterbalance into a
Yeah.
lot of what we're talking and doing.
I think it's extremely powerful as one reflects on and really listens to the journey that Call Potential has gone on yourself. Having the right partnerships, for lack of any other descriptions, transcends gender. It transcends gender in the context of serving our customers and our clients and what have you. So that resonates very deeply for me as well.
Yeah, well, and a lot of it is, Wendy came on, and we were initially maybe a couple people, 3, 4 people, something like that. I don't remember how many. And and when she came on as part time, and it was one where we kept expanding, and she kept picking up and just doing and doing it better than anybody else that we had to fill in that role. And so she just kept quickly moving up until where now she runs a significant part of our organization, and has been highly valuable. And the same goes with Holly. When she came in initially with storage experience and marketing experience, but even from there, leading up our project side is Usha, who Usha came in, and she now leads our and all of the projects on our engineering side, which really we're about 35 on our
Mhm.
engineering and QA side. And so keeping a lot of strong personalities in line, and being able to sit there and make sure deadlines are hit, and resources are being used the way they are. I gotta imagine it's a challenge, but she's been able to step up and help run that.
Excellent, excellent. And I think definitively, as you called out, you've had the right influences in terms of respectfully your mother, your grandmother, all throughout. And I found it very much in the similar vein. Having the right influences throughout the journey makes all the difference. And I don't think in terms of gender, exactly as you described. That goes such a long ways. So thank you for sharing that, Phil.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where I don't want to make it sound like it doesn't come up. It's
Yeah.
it's something where I have to be aware of it, and I can't sit there and just pretend like, oh, everybody likes to pretend they're blind
Hmm.
to all of these things, and I don't think that's realistic. I think you've got to be aware. You've got to try and not let it bleed in. You've got to try and make sure it doesn't cloud the decision you are going to make. And part of that is being aware, and all at the same time doing what you can to make sure it doesn't influence. Because you can't make sure it doesn't influence if you pretend it doesn't exist.
Yep. Yes. Yes. And I think that goes such a long ways in saying leadership is hard work. And it's hard work because you have to have the awareness to confront your own ego, to make decisions that truly fulfill the broader picture. And likewise, challenge ourselves to say, am I being biased? Am I going ahead and really ignoring a blind spot because I don't want to confront really what it's telling me?
Yeah, and there's plenty of blind spots that I've had with business and family and friends, and just anything in general. And it's always interesting because there's always that thing that happens that can wake you up to that aspect you weren't aware of, or didn't see. And so I think it's important because we're always learning and always growing. And if you want to have a business that you want to be a part of, you've got to make sure it's a culture that you want to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. Phil, I want to touch upon, and I want to respect your time, but I want to touch upon one other thing, if you will, because I do think it's extremely, extremely powerful in what I've come to know about Call Potential and yourself. Um, as you reflect on yourself, you reflect on the organization, you reflect on where things are going. Naturally, an artist will associate themselves with their work. An entrepreneur will associate themselves with the organization that they're building. You know, as you reflect on that, what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs in terms of their creation and their relationship to their creation?
I think it's don't be well, be scared, but control it. It's one of those things that you're always going to be afraid. Don't sit there and think you've got to be this. I'm the entrepreneur. I knew all along that this was going to work. there's been probably 50 different times that I've thought to myself with call potential, man, if I could just sell this and go away, and oh, this got hard, and every entrepreneur I think goes through that point of questioning, and everybody talks about that. I've blanked on the name of it. It's the where you're where you're exposed for being a fraud. For
Oh,
being
imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome. Yes, I'm
Yep.
like I can't.
All good.
Everybody kind of goes through that imposter syndrome where you're sitting there going like everybody's going to realize I maybe I'm not as good as they all think I am. But really, the other side of it is being ready and prepared for the time when you don't think you're going to make this work, or I don't want to. This is too nerve wracking. The ups and downs, the roller coaster. I can't take this because every time the roller coaster has gone down, I've been able to lean on my team because we've concentrated on that culture to help ride me through it going back up. And the good thing is every time it goes down, it only goes down a little bit, and it goes right back up. And I know there's more downs coming, and there'll be one in 21 sometime. I'm sure COVID was one where I'm sitting there in March and April going, what's going to happen? Are we going to shut this whole thing down? What about all these people? I started sitting there organizing. Okay, if I've got to trim my organization, how do I go about doing that to make this work? Luckily, we never had to do that. We continued to grow. We were in the right space to have call potential be accelerated by many of the impacts on industry versus not. And so we were lucky, but we had to go out and plan that and had to prepare for that disaster, and you just got to be ready for it and ride the
Excellent.
ride.
Well said. And definitively, I think it really speaks a lot to the culture and the leadership that you exemplify and the leadership team. The imposter syndrome, if you will, is really overcome by embracing your humanity and having the right partners around you and build that foundation of culture and strategy and all those facets that come into play then.
Yeah, and listening to your mom when she just tells you over and over how great you are. I mean, it's got to be true, right?
Yes, 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 indeed. I,
There you
I always listen to mom. I'm with you
go.
completely, my friend. My good friend, any last words before we sign off all around?
No, I think it's been great being on here, and obviously, like I said, I think it's a great topic, a great conversation to have, and obviously we've come far, but there's a lot further to go, and look forward to kind of continuing to grow not only call potential but everything else.
Excellent. Excellent. Phil, thank you so much for making the time. And by all means, we thank everybody at Call Potential, and we look forward to folks joining us on the 13th for the event. And again, deep gratitude for making the time, Phil. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Si.
Thank you so much.